strongly suspect that Ben Cherington's never going to live down the "a place like Pittsburgh" remark, especially not after these playoffs. Good morning to you. Good Monday morning. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports. This is Daily Shot of Pirates. It comes your way bright and early every weekday. If you're into football and or hockey, I also offer daily shots of Steelers and Penguins. Same place you found this. I don't know about you, but when I think of a place like Pittsburgh, and we're talking about Major League Baseball as a context, I'm thinking of, Milwaukee, St. Louis, San Diego, Kansas City, Cincinnati. In every one of those cases and more, I can cite very real things that have been done by those franchises to improve themselves. Miami's another one. Cleveland's another one, maybe the best one, actually. And they're either doing real things to get better, or they're, in the playoffs. In the bleeping playoffs. It's a universal pattern among every one of these teams I just mentioned. Every last one of them. So the correct way of looking at what would or should be done in, quote, a place like Pittsburgh, end quote, well, it's exactly what they did, which is nothing. Not a damn thing. That's what they did. They fired the hitting coach. They fired the bullpen coach who doesn't even do anything. They fired the strength and conditioning coach. And as Cherington couldn't have made clearer himself in that same press conference last week, he's going to replace them with people who are completely identical. Because when he was asked about the hitting philosophy, which I've been telling you all along is his response was, no, they're not changing that. They just need to teach it better. Because the hitting philosophy of watching strike three go by is just so precious it can't possibly be modified. That's what you're getting. That's what we're getting in, quote, a place like Pittsburgh, end quote, because in a place like Pittsburgh, there's an owner who doesn't give a crap. And as such, that's what works its way down. When people talk about losing culture with the Pirates, I think that can sometimes get lost a little bit in some nebulous intangible, like the clubhouse is all mopey and there isn't some big vocal leader like AJ Burnett. Never mind that both of those things are true. But that's not the origin point. That's not the root. That's only the result. The root is all the way to the top. The root is all the way up there because there's no urgency, and there's no urgency because there's no accountability. In the final 2 months of this season, and I'm completely convinced of this, behind the scenes there was all kinds of squirming and maneuvering by Cherington, by Derek Shelton, by others who dared to allow themselves to think that their jobs might be in jeopardy. But their response, the stuff they actually did, wasn't aimed at making the team better. It was aimed at gaslighting Nutting. Really, more than anybody else. It was aimed at gaslighting him. Because they don't care at all what you or I think, and I would hope that press conference really illustrated that powerfully. They're only worried about what Bob thinks, because if they have Bob on their side or they sell Bob on some crazy concepts about how they've really improved, when they have 76 wins one year, 76 wins the next year, and even if you split them up, it's not just about the win total. Even if you split them up by, let's just study their hitting, let's just study their pitching, the only area in which they got better was, guess what? Starting pitching. And guess why? Because Paul Skeens fell to them from the clouds. But if you do enough of that and you make the presentation in some really compelling way, you're going to get the owner without a baseball background to fall for it, especially if it seems like it's less work for him. He doesn't have to go hire new people now. He doesn't have to do a total transfusion. And by the way, that's what happens when you fire a GM. You're not replacing one person with another. That new person, whoever they are, they come with their own, it's a conglomerate. That's the way these work. The people who apply for these jobs have a pack of humans who are ready to move with them. And what happened here was that Nutting fell for it, probably because he wanted to fall for it. He leaves the whole thing intact, and he just doesn't care. He just doesn't care about winning. If it happens, yay. If it doesn't, oh well. When we come back, J1Q.
It's Gun Storage Check Week. Help prevent unwanted access to your firearms. No one wants their unsecured gun to be used in an accident, a suicide, or a crime. Use lockboxes, safes, and locks to secure your firearms. Learn more at gunstoragecheck.org. That's gunstoragecheck.org. Brought to you by NSSF, the Firearm Industry Trade Association.
Today's J1Q comes from Donna, who asks, DK, why does Derek Shelton give his designated header, and specifically Andrew McCutchen, so many days off? Why does he do it so frequently? Donna, the answer to why he gives Kutch days off, I would hope, would be obvious and clear. I mean, Kutch is 37. Next year, he's going to be 38. And over the last 2-3 years, he's been hit with some minor type injuries that you wouldn't have if you were younger. He has I don't know if you want to call it chronic, but he has an issue that's been bugging him for a long time now with his ankle. It never really goes away. It's just kind of, good days, bad days. But beyond that, this is, look, I don't want to turn this show into something that's just never, ever, ever about actual baseball. But when I hear, why does Shelton give his guys so many days off? I hear, respectfully, Donna, a classic case of looking at the symptoms and not the causes. The reason that we complain about the lineup that Shelton puts out there isn't the batting order, it isn't the selection, it isn't who has the days off. It's that we just completed year 5 of a process in which there's nowhere near enough talent at hand. That's it. That's it. If this team had been able to draft, develop, acquire out of Latin America, make trades that weren't complete disasters, then you'd be talking about, some really good players coming off the bench, and you wouldn't be worried about so-and-so getting the day off. You follow what I'm saying here? I'm going to put this into a real world term, hopefully for you. Starling Marte, big hit the other day for the Mets. Do you know what the Pirates got for Marte? Do you remember that? Do you remember? Because nobody ever does. When they make these trades for these prospects, it's a common thing for, the prospect type gurus to get in there and say what kind of awesome potential these guys have. And you can Google and find people just raving about both Leover Peguero and Brennan Malone. One problem with that, prospects aren't players. Prospects are prospects. And until they get to the majors and perform, they're not players. Peguero can't stick with the Pirates. He had voluminous opportunity over the 2024 season, and Ben Cherington's own people, including Cherington himself, said no to Peguero. No, we don't want him up. No, he didn't run hard to first base. It's apparently an issue with him. He didn't play hard enough. He didn't hit well enough. Malone is now 22 years old, and he's still an A-ball with terrible numbers. And the only other component to the trade was that they got international bonus cap space. Not to bore you with what all that is, but it basically goes into your international pool. Well, the Pirates just literally fired their Latin American scouting director, Junior Vizcaíno, because he was terrible at his job, which means that cap space, that money that was spent, and it was spent, was for nothing. So you traded away a player who, regardless, Starling said he wanted out, and I know why. He told me that. He just wanted to go somewhere where he had a prayer of winning. And he goes to New York, and this was after Arizona. Arizona was the team that did the trade. He's still a player. He's still a player. He's not a great player, but he's a very good player. And he came with real value, which means that in theory, he should have brought real value back. He brought zero back. Zero. That's why I prefer to talk about this sort of thing and try to picture what not center field, but what the outfield would look like if it was Brian Reynolds, Starling Marte, and, you have one fewer blank to fill in. This is why I don't mean to sound impatient or disrespectful when it comes to stuff like Shelton and his, because he's not good at making out lineups, and he does give too many days off, not to Kutch, but to others. It's all so small, compared to the real problems. The real problem, singular, is the GM. I appreciate the question nonetheless, Donna. I appreciate everybody who listens to Daily Shot of Pirates. We're going to do another one of these tomorrow.